that I really appreciated. Frank thing, right? Hey, guess what? We're starting our 62-mile race. Everybody get up, grab your rugs, we're going. Some of my favorite memories are really when things were pretty crappy, but you're right there with people, good dudes, and just whatever it is, either a laugh or this or some bit of quiet strength. And yeah, those are the memories that really stick with us. So I'm glad you guys got to experience that and see it from a different perspective, slightly different lens from a linear race in like a triathlon type area or just a marathon or ultra marathon or things like that. Not, don't get me wrong, those are absolutely brutal and challenging in their own right, but adding a few of these other elements changes the tone quite a bit. And how about Mr. Sam?
Yeah, I'm going to lean into what some of the other guys had mentioned. We meaning the team had some conversations. I had realized that this, and Sean and I in particular had a number of these discussions, that the team concept here was definitely taken to a new level. It was, you could see that it was a focus of Rob's, and certainly within the foundation of the race. We acknowledge that team element was going to be a make or break component of our success. And I think we took a decent stab at trying to, bring everybody together in advance from, working environment, getting to know each other in moments of suffering. I've spent a lot of time with Jon in stages of suffering, and he's been around me enough. Sean and I have had some of those experiences. Matt and I have had very little, and Matt's had very little with the rest of us. And I don't know that Matt's had much of that from an individual race standpoint. So, we knew that we had to collectively as a team try to figure out, how are we going to communicate? How are we going to respond to one another when, certain elements become challenged and you start to have that breakdown, and without having a lot of experience and time under our belts with each other. And I think in hindsight, we probably needed more of that time together. I know myself well enough. I can get really deep. I can go places in suffering. I've suffered a lot on my own. And that's different than suffering among others and being part of that unit. I think we were averaging like 3 miles an hour in the beginning of day one and feeling pretty strong. Certainly, I had enough confidence to think that I was going to get through that event. I did hurt my knee coming down that first ledge and didn't think anything of it. But when we were dropping in the canyon, it started getting worse. And it just got so aggravated throughout the day that, I was only getting like 15% of range of motion in it. And that started getting into my head because I didn't know what was going on with my knee. And then when we ran out of water, things started getting real. And I thought about Anthony, who was, 4 miles back waiting on water. And I thought, damn, I know I'm okay pushing, but if I go down, who gets me out of here? And I wasn't sure, I was putting a lot of weight on my right leg, trying to nurse my left leg for a bunch of miles. And I thought, okay, at some point, the right leg's going to say, hey, I'm just tired of hanging and doing all the work for the left leg. So I just wasn't sure what my body was going to be able to, how I was going to respond. Then running out of water was a little bit of a kick in the pants. And I didn't say anything to these guys because I was totally humiliated. We had been out of water for a while, and I packed a LifeStraw in my backpack. And I took it out of the box. I just threw it in my pack. I never even looked at the instructions on it. So we get to the water station and I'm out of water. And I thought, shit, I don't know how to work this damn thing. And I don't want to take a risk of drinking unfiltered water and then getting sick. So I went without water and I didn't bother to ask anybody for theirs. And that was probably a mistake. So there definitely were elements that learning here, and I expected that coming in with, with a lot of endurance experience, but not the military experience. I was up for that part of the challenge. I'm completely content with the fact that I learned a lot about this process. I went in expecting to learn a lot. But back to Jon's comment about, not being able to finish, Yeah, I said to him, we were back in Telluride, and I said, man, this is the first race I have not finished since 1986. And that race was my first race. I have never not finished something that I'd started. And so that was a gut check. It still kind of bugs me, but we did miss the cutoff. At that point, we're not racing for points anymore. And I started weighing in the fact, okay, if my knee's really jacked and I get a few miles in tomorrow, I'm not doing anybody any good. And I've got to get myself back out of there. What am I continuing on for? So, I made the decision, okay, look, I'm where I am today. I will say, though, this stuff's not easy to talk about, failing or not being able to persevere. But the reality was, Rob pulled me aside in the evening at day one, and he's like, Sam, have you met, and I don't want to call names out, but he asked me if I met one of the other team's guys, and I said no. And he goes, he's a SEAL Team 6 guy, Sam. He's like, and he's out. Like, you're in good company. I don't want to play the age card, but, it was,
Don't play
it was nice. Yeah, no, it was nice to be able to be out there with guys who were much younger, be able to rub shoulders. And I'll tell you, just gained such admiration and respect from everybody. There weren't any egos, nobody pointing fingers or being critical of anybody that didn't. Hell, we had 5 teams that didn't get past day one, I think. It was a full-on challenge. What really blew me away, and you may be getting there, and I don't want to get there too soon if you were, but I don't think I can emphasize enough. I knew that when we talked about it on the first interview, we all expected to come out of here with new relationships. And we knew that camaraderie piece was going to be a key element that Rob had shot for in his mission. But I didn't expect it to be as fulfilling as it was. So many great people. And I say people because I'm not just talking about the racers. Our relationship, Brent, and so many other volunteers and the folks who were engaged. I continue to have almost daily conversations with a lot of people. It's just, I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
It's so awesome. And you're absolutely right. You're in great company. That was a extremely demanding course. And you guys are the men in the arena. You guys are the people that rose up to that challenge, and you still finished the first day when many other people did not, even other team guys, like you said. So all I want to do is commend you guys. Thank you guys for stepping up, being there, putting out. And you guys were the salty crew. You know what I mean? You guys were the older crew there. So there's zero reason to walk away from anything there and have a bad feeling about yourself.
Well, I think we need to give credit to the salty 60-year-old in the middle of this thing right here, Sean Pechon, because, he decided, yeah, I'm going to keep going. And he went on and finished all 3 days. Despite the fact that, we weren't in there for points, Sean, and I could tell day one, I was watching him physically. And, at one point I had to pull him back. I'm like, dude, we can't keep your pace. Like we're falling off and we need to bring it back. And he had to slow down a little for us. He was just dialed in, really conditioned. And I think mentally, of course, really strong. But, to know Sean, and he talked about it before, as much as, I have a No 0 Days brand, it's something he's been living and breathing. And Sean, why don't you just share what your training regimen has been like this year, your weekly one?
Oh, I do 15 miles of running a week, 150 miles of biking, and then I throw a little bit of gym time in there.
So he's been full on consistent, and it really showed, when we were down and having to push through, all that undulation that day one brought. I could just see the level of conditioning that and the payoff that with the commitment that he had made, daily for himself. It really shined.
That's awesome. Yeah. Following you through that trek was great. What would you say if you could think of an element or a attribute, Sean, that really helped you dig in and just keep going despite the challenges and the obstacles?
Like I said, I think it started on that day one, and I don't know, I get a little kind of sick in the head when it comes to the more you're going to make it hurt. I came into this event and I told Sam this a few times. I said, Rob is going to play. He's going to push teams to the limit. They're going to try to push teams apart from one another. I thought it was going to be more in like some of the challenges where he's going to try to really pit one another, but he didn't have to. The terrain and and such did that for us, right? But I made up my mind, I'd say halfway between aid station 1 and 2, that no, this got to find a way to finish this. Got to find a way to finish this. And you talk about all the conditioning you want. Brett, you were there. I think you might have taken the picture. At one point, I had 2 corpsmen working on my feet the third morning, heading out of there. I take that back. One of them was Army medic and the other was Navy corpsman. And the corpsman, I got to say it here, that's what I remember on the active duty side in the Corps. And it just, that warms your heart when you see the level of passion that those guys put into that, the level of aggressiveness, hey, sit down, we're going to put you back together, we're going to put you back in the fight. For those that are listening to this, that's what they do every day. Amazing stuff. So kudos to them. I hope they're listening.
Absolutely. They're great folks for sure. And I think, just to echo the corpsman, perhaps on the next packing and planning cycle, instead of extra t-shirts, there'll be just that much more weight and socks. Changing your socks and taking your Motrin and hydrating. That's pretty much the sage corpsman advice. But with that being said, knowing that there's people there looking out for you, huge morale boost. And that once it circles me back around to something that Jon said earlier about maybe it was the water or there was some element, and then all of a sudden it was just like, it brought down the mood. It brought down the internal spirit, right? That psychological weight. And that's one of those things that the trail, the wilderness, the unknowns, just life in general will challenge each of us with. We're all going to have that psychological weight that's just going to set heavy on us at some point. And again, I want to bring this up because one, Ryan did what he did to pave the way for the future generations of warfighters and operators and people that have to deal with the traumatic brain injury, PTSD, complex PTSD, right? But there's an immense amount of psychological weight that can push down on each and every one of us as human beings. And you guys having experienced that there in the field, having looked to each other and lifted each other up, found that corpsman or that medic that gave you that leg up, that gave you that extra assistance, that camaraderie and that community that we all need to share. You guys demonstrated with me without even asking. And I think that that's so powerful. And that's another reason why I just wanted to circle back around to that point, because that's real life. And you guys are leaders in that. You guys are demonstrating to each other and to so many others modeled behavior to how to help other people rise up and get them through those super heavy times. So again, I just want to thank you guys so much for what you guys are doing.
Yeah, the event, look, there's another race somewhere tomorrow. They're all over. And many times I've often said, like, if your only focus is to finish, be careful. You might just end up with a t-shirt. If you're not open and aware and observant during the process, you miss the whole journey. There's so much more to be gained. This was a tremendous race. It's certainly a formidable challenge, physical challenge and mental challenge, but there's a lot of them out there, all over the world, and you could find one tomorrow if you want to. But going into these things and having purpose, and we talked about this last time, and having the mindset that you're in here for bigger things, I think is more important. It doesn't always make that little gut check of a DNF go away, but the reality is there are way more important things to be gained out of these experiences than just walking across the finish line. You could be the fastest, but if you didn't gain anything, you don't have any brotherhood. Can you imagine coming out of this thing and walking out of the finish line, not having any relationships, not having any experiences, not having any brotherhood to talk about? Why even bother? So, Rob and team, I think, did a phenomenal job of setting that up. You know him, you get around him, you look at the people around him, and you know the purpose behind this. He was devoted to bringing Ryan's legacy forward to help others, and you couldn't help but understand that and just feed off of that the entire time.
Yep, that's something that I really appreciated. Great thing, right? Hey, guess what? We're starting our 62-mile race. Everybody get up, grab your rugs, we're going.
What I thought was really impressive was the fact that out of all the volunteers, there was only one from Colorado. I mean, was that Ron? He's out of Castle Rock, right?
Yeah.
Just to me, just to see that people came, including yourself, Brent, but people came from all across the country, from the Pacific coast to the Atlantic coast and everywhere in between, that people gave their time and, 3, 4, 5, 7 days, whatever it took, for them to do it, just goes to show how much love and respect
sleeping
that
on the
people have
ground.
for Ryan and for Rob.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was one of the things that Frank said. Ryan's dad said in his speech at the beginning was, there's going to be hard times. We're going to find those moments. But what I hope for you guys is that when you're on that trail and you do run into it, that maybe you think of Ryan and he helps you take that next step. He helps you pass that barrier. He helps you see that side of you that you've overcome. So you guys are hitting all around it. I just wanted to touch it back there with what Frank said, because it was super powerful when he said it and it resonated with me.
Well, just look at how many people have been touched by this one event, right? So you got all the racers, you have all the volunteers, and then you have the donors, on top of it. It's pretty amazing. And what a testament to his legacy, to just have that expansion of people that have been touched by his life.
For real.
More to
For
come,
real.
right?
What's that?
More to come.
More to come. More to come. This is just the beginning. And the scholarships that people are going to be able to go to improve their sleep, because that was what I consider my domino whenever I had my major health crisis. And I didn't know what else to think about, what else to do. I mean, I couldn't sleep. I could not sleep at all. Maybe I'd get an hour and a half of sleep a night, but it was tormented. It was awful, whether it was night sweats or just waking up and just being heart racing 100 miles an hour and just knowing that whatever it was, you're in extreme fight or flight mode, but you're just right there in your bed, and there's nothing else there. And the rumination was out of this world. And once my sleep started getting better, everything else started getting better. And I know that a big portion of these funds, I don't know the finance side or anything like that, but I do know that some of the money that's raised is going into helping people with their sleep issues that are going through issues like this. So I know for a fact that like you said, that legacy, that follow-on effect, that snowball is going to touch so many more lives. And then once a dad gets his sleep back and then he can function better and he's not as symptomatic, he doesn't pass as much on to his children. He doesn't pass as much on to his family. So I think it's really powerful what we're doing here. And you're absolutely right. Thank you so much for bringing up that paying it forward piece and about how many lives were touched just now in this event, and then how many are touched like that are going to be impacted moving forward. So just kind of transition a little bit. You guys were out there in the backcountry, beautiful scenery, mountains, just incredible. You had the streams, you had the trees, you had the snow, still a little bit of snow on some of the peaks. It was just gorgeous. So in the middle of the struggle and the grind, you touched on this a minute ago, Sam, so I wanted to come back this way. Was there a moment of clarity, or did you find some clarity that maybe you were looking for? You said you found some camaraderie and you took a lot out of that, but was there like an aha moment inside your own life that you were just like, yeah, this is light bulb or whatever? Anybody have a epiphany?
Yeah.